Welcome everybody back to the DomCast. We are live on episode 5, just like that. 5th episode of the 75th NBA season, which is absolutely being dominated by COVID. And it's, obviously it's disappointing. I'm not telling you any news there. It's just like, damn, this is our 3rd COVID season. One got shut down. And then last year we kind of had the situation we're having right now where it seems like some games are about to be postponed, specifically in Chicago, unless Adam Silver just absolutely hates them. Because, like, fam, who are they going to play? Me? It's not funny, but goddamn, who are they gonna play in their next game? Anyways, that's in a section a little bit later. Today's episode is on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It may be a little bit shorter just because I was in LA this week, as I said I was going to be. Awesome experience that I'll talk a little bit about with 2K at the end. Because of that, I missed out on some of the action live, but I was still able to recap everything. But the columns turned out kind of more or less even between the happy, neutral, unhappy, and all that. It's not as lopsided as it was. There also may or may not be time markers in the comment section. I don't know if that's been helping all at all, but I normally have time to listen to the whole thing and mark it. I don't know if that's going to happen today, but I will try. There will be an attempt. Well, let's not waste any time, regardless of how long this is going to be. We can get into it, starting with... Should I start with the unhappy? Let's mix it up. Let's start with unhappy this week. I started with happy like the last 2 weeks. Let's start with unhappy here. Unhappy, we will go to... Oh, gosh. Man. Maybe some of these should have been in the unhappy section. Some of this interesting stuff. Well, the Blazers, but for different reasons. CJ McCollum has a collapsed lung. Now, that sounds dangerous. No shit, right? No, that sounds... you don't hear players go out with collapsed lungs out of nowhere. It's specifically scary just because everything that's happening with COVID right now. I don't know if it's related at all, but if you hear anything that has to do... I believe the scientific term they use had the word pneumonia in it. And so I heard that, I was like, uh-oh, is this one of those... not injuries. Is this one of those ailments that we've been wondering would appear amongst athletes who are playing in these conditions? Either way, he is out for an extended period of time on a Blazers team that was already struggling. Lillard did come back, though. He came back in a loss against the Timberwolves last night. Just terrible timing for Portland, though. We've talked about them only last week. I don't think I talk about Portland every week. I mention them every now and then. But terrible timing as they are far down in the standings now. They are actually out of the play-in. They're sitting at 11-16. Their defense is a train wreck. They're now with McCollum. They're injured. Not sure what type of shape Lillard is going to be in going forward. And if all of that wasn't enough, of course, yeah, by the way, they're on a 5-game losing streak. He was in the news this week, of course. The Blazers said they are not interested in trading Lillard. They have no interest in it. So he has no interest in being traded. They have no interest in trading him. That came about when we were talking about when the 76ers trade rumors came up this week, because the Blazers, everything just kind of fell apart at once, and sources started saying, hey, this Ben Simmons to Portland thing is kind of heating up, which is fascinating. That I feel like that's one of the main spots we've heard for Simmons throughout this entire saga. And it wouldn't fix Portland if it did happen, which I really don't think it's going to happen now, because even if it does, first of all, I think the Sixers have to get rid of Simmons in the next couple of months, even if Morey says he will hold out for X amount of years. I kind of feel like they have to get that done just because Maples on Twitter, Jason Maples, he brought up a good point. Like, your guy Embiid is on a good year. Let's not forget he is kind of held together by tapes and string. Let's just call it what it is. He's pretty injury prone. He takes I don't know if I've seen all the wild falls that I normally see from him this year. He takes crazy falls sometimes. Then next thing you know, there's a knee injury. There's some type of injury down there. He misses some time. But my point is, or his point was, he's having to do a hell of a lot for this Sixers team, who is falling behind early because of his absence. They are excuse me, God, man, I hate when I have to clear my throat at the beginning of the podcast. We're not even 5 minutes in, bro. They're 15-12. They're trying to rebound from his absence. Not doing terribly. It's just when you have to lean on him so heavily for so much for this team to get wins, and you've got the trade piece in Simmons. You can say you want to hold out for X amount of years, but you also kind of need to get support pieces around Embiid, so your entire offense is not basically post him up and post him up. That's the story. That's basically it. But anyways, back to the Blazers thing. CJ was pretty much one of the pieces I thought would have been involved in that trade if it's not Lillard, and now with the lung, don't know how long he's going to be out. Kind of seems like that's a hard thing to swing this year. And Philly was saying they're not interested in involving Lillard in that trade if it were to happen for Simmons. Obviously, CJ McCollum and Simmons doesn't really move the needle for you. You might as well just rebuild totally at that point. The other bit of news of Portland that was very interesting to me, though, I'm trying to remember the source. Let's just go ahead and say if it were true. It was said, because you're aware that Portland is on the hunt for a new general manager. O'Shea is out, and they were saying that in the future Lillard wants a extension of 2 years, 107 million, which at a high age, I feel like that's a really weird term. At an older age, he would probably be the highest paid player at that point. 2 years, 107 million. We see such big numbers in the NBA that when I saw that, it didn't move me. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute, 2 years. It's like 50 something. And right now, this is already with it's an injury. There's rule changes, but he's also had injury. So let's see if he has a better season next year, I guess. But you kind of start looking at it funny. And I think a lot of the GMs that are looking for this job are looking at that funny as well. That was the report. It's saying that the people that they're looking for, people that are interested in this job, aren't interested in giving him that contract, and probably rightfully so. What would Lillard be when that? I think the number I read was 36 or 37 years old. He would be at the time of this extension. So I kind of understand it, especially if this season sets a trend. So if that's true, if that's the extension Lillard wants, I almost feel like that's saying trade me without trade me. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because Lillard trade news is boring now, since it's not happening anytime soon. But I'm just going to say that, yeah, if Lillard wants 2 years, 107 million, if that's what he's asking for as like a talking point on his contract, to me that says trade me. That's what it says. All right, that's Portland talk. Sad for them, though. Really am sad for it to see it go out like this, because the thing with CJ, I'm just concerned about him as a person at that point. That's not anything you ever want to hear. A JaVale McGee masterclass. Now, this one happened when I was in LA. We were actually in the restaurant. They had it playing on the TV. I saw some of what was happening, and I saw the score. I just neglected to even pay attention after a certain point, because the Phoenix Suns were missing Devin Booker still, and DeAndre Ayton. Their starting lineup was Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges. Boy, I'd be wanting to mess that up so badly and call him Miles. Not because I don't know who he is, just Miles, Mikal Bridges. It's so easy to mess up. Yeah, Bridges, JaVale McGee, and Landry Shamet. They beat Boston by 21 points. McGee had 21, 15. 9 of 16 from the field, and hey, get this, 1 of 2 from 3. Yes, JaVale McGee confidently shot a 3 from the top, and he was also hitting sky hooks, and Boston was also just giving him the widest rolls to the rim, also created in part by Chris Paul. That's kind of what he does. But when I went to my podcast document to type in JaVale McGee masterclass, I almost cried. Not because he's a bad player. What's funny about that performance is, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember when the Denver Nuggets gave him a pretty big contract in like 2012, 2013. This is who we expected him to be. So if you happen to watch JaVale McGee Celtics highlights, or you watch that game, that is the guy that we thought McGee was going to be back then. He had the tools, he had the wingspan, he had the athleticism. And then the Nuggets thought he was going to be that guy too, so they paid him. We really thought it was going to be like that. Either way, it's not all jokes. I've said probably 2 or 3 times when I mention of the Suns that McGee has been a big upgrade to this team. And I don't think this game is necessarily a good example, because Some of those buckets came during time when the game was over, and the Celtics are just, like I said, probably on last week's podcast, super weird, inconsistent defensive effort. Sometimes they give Joel Embiid a really hard time and win a game, and sometimes JaVale McGee is doing Kareem skyhooks. It's crazy. But he has been an upgrade to this team. He's off the bench behind DeAndre Ayton. That role threat with Chris Paul on the floor is just something else that they can go to. It's funny with contending teams how little something has to be, or how little a name has to be to make an impact sometimes. He's just been one of those this year. But I do just want to put it in your ear if you have not seen the performance to watch it. And Ime Udoka, it's funny, I used to, especially when I saw his name in 2K, I think I used to call him I'm Udoka. Because I never heard them say it, because he didn't play in the game, so the commentator never said his name, and I just read it as I'm Udoka. But anyways, Coach Udoka, after that game, I believe, once again talked about the Boston Celtics effort. That's been a theme with him, constantly talking about the Celtics effort as a first-year coach. And it is interesting just because I think it kind of speaks to what or where this team is. He's not necessarily wrong is the thing either. It's just I don't know if this is the route you take with it. Do you not call it out as a first year coach? You can say you're supposed to be building with your players, and after every game they lose, after every other game they lose, you're calling out their effort and you're saying, I don't know if they gave the proper effort. Is that necessarily a thing you want to say? But also it's kind of what I see too when I watch them play. It's just inconsistent. It's like two different teams sometimes, neither of which are going to win a championship this year or get close to winning a championship this year, which is funny because, no, actually it's not funny. I was going to talk about the standings because they were damn near 4th earlier this week, and now they're 10th. Now they're 3 games out of 4th. So anyways, yeah, JaVale McGee masterclass is a thing that happened. It happened against Boston, so it's in the unhappy section. JaVale McGee masterclass, crazy. Zion update. Zion Williamson. He's regressed with his foot, by the way, which, when's the first time I brought him up on this podcast? Probably 3 weeks ago to a month now. Probably 3 weeks. I'm not going to stretch it. But yeah, if you weren't aware, I'm going to give you the report right now. I'm going to give you the scoop, all right? So this is Shams 2K, Woj 2K. Zion's not playing this season. Told y'all that last week. I said it the week before. It's stupid to imagine. Well, okay, back up, reverse real quick. I did want to point out, though, the pictures that we've seen of him are also kind of conflicting. The ones when Shaq and Charles were just being brutal, that was a video. And the one that where he was in the mall, I guess, and he took pictures with the fans, that one looked much better. Even with that, foot injury, they said it's regressing. I think it's the 5th metatarsal, something like that. And with his play style, the things he was doing last year, the force that he has to use to get to the rim to basically bulldoze people for lack of having a consistent shot, it's gonna put a lot of pressure on that. Sit him. And it hurts me to say that just because I do enjoy seeing what Brandon Ingram is able to do this season. And I will even go back to the beginning of the year when I was kind of roasting them for losing Lonzo Ball or letting him go. I will say I still am kind of confused on the package and how that happened. But also it's unfortunate because if Zion was on this team, they probably would have been decent this year. You've got Devontae Graham there. Valanciunas having a pretty good year. And then that would have just given Ingram even more, I don't know, space is the word, but all the defensive focus couldn't have been on him then. Zion doesn't necessarily space the floor for him, but it would have been a second star. He wouldn't have had to carry as much. And when you watch Ingram actually play, he's in his bag. So it's frustrating because he almost feels like the league's best kept secret, I would say, just being in a tough spot, Louisiana. It's unfortunate as I say that because I've been meaning to look it up all week. How much time does he have on his contract? I am an asshole for this young talented player on a team that and the franchise that seldom ever gets to keep their guys. I'm like, yeah, when can he leave again? It's probably no time soon, but oh god, yeah, he's stuck. Yeah, he's stuck. He that's the last time I'm clearing my throat. He's stuck till 2025. I'm not sure when he signed this. Oh boy, might have a new president by then. That is insane. Well then, yeah, tough things, but that was the Zion update for this week. And then I only had one more thing that made me unhappy, and it wasn't even with the actual NBA. It was Ray Allen. Ray Allen and his confusing interview talking about Steph Curry breaking his record. If you're not hip, because I don't even know if I retweeted it, he basically said, who was he being interviewed by? He's being interviewed by this guy, and he starts off the interview by saying, yeah, you know, you're the greatest three-point shooter of all time. Something like, we won't be able to say that in a couple of days. It probably wasn't that harsh, but it was along those lines. And Ray was like, oh no, you can still say that. And it was kind of uncomfortable because the podcaster couldn't tell if he was trying to be funny or if he was serious, because Ray wasn't really laughing. Now Ray was serious. So dude asked him to elaborate. He was like, oh, so we can still call you the greatest shooter? Basically after Steph breaks your record, which by the way is really it's a really ugly process, but we'll get to that. And Ray basically went on this really long word salad tangent that said it's about perspective. There's one perspective. And I do want to preface it by saying I'm not mad at Ray for the Celtics and Heat thing. That happened when I was a kid. I just want to say that, you know, we appreciate everything he did in the league. I appreciate it anyways. He was awesome to watch, gave me some great childhood memories, and I love him as a legend. I really do. So something, I don't want to be on here on a podcast like roasting Ray and then something stupid happens like 2 weeks from now. Nah, we love Ray around here. But I've watched them both. I watched Ray, I watched Steph. It's not even neck and neck. It's really just not, man. Steph is an alien. I don't get it either, bro. I don't get it either, but he's an alien. I will say I agree with Ray's general point, because he was kind of saying like, oh, there's kids today that won't be able to imagine that there's anything better than what they're watching. And I completely agree with that. There's kids that have only seen LeBron James and will never be able to imagine there was anything even close to that. There's going to be somebody born like right now, or maybe who's just catching the tail end of LeBron's career. And then it's going to be a guy putting up triple doubles like crazy. And they're going to be like, oh, you sure LeBron was better than this? It's going to keep happening like that. So I would even agree that people might start underrating Ray a little bit. Nobody remembers his days when he put the ball on the floor before he was in Boston. He did more than just catch and shoot. Ray was really that. He was really that guy. But with that being said, Ray and his best. Oh, and the other part of that was, yes, in this era, Ray would have absolutely had more threes. I think that's what he's really getting at, is that he does not have the same green light Steph had. So one of the reasons Steph is completely shattered his record and he's doing it in way less games is because he's got a green light. He damn near created the green light from being able to shoot from the hash and half court off the dribble. Steph kind of created that green light. Even with that, I would say from what I saw from Ray, and even in his younger days, I don't believe that with a green light, you would have Ray Allen pulling up quick trigger off the dribble from the logo and have it being a consistent, legitimate threat. I don't see that. I can't get there, because what Steph has done is so astronomically different in that point. I'm using a lot of words to say that Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. I really don't need to. I guess I was just kind of sad to see that Reggie Miller can just say, hey, look, I was a great shooter. I had my time. I'm not close to Steph. He's best shooter on the planet, best shooter in history, world history. Reggie would just tell it to you, put his hands up and be like, shit, he got me, bro. Excuse me for hitting the mic. He got me, man. I guess that's kind of what I was hoping to see from Ray. Maybe because Ray didn't really have the record that long. I actually had to do a comparison. How long did Reggie have the record until Ray broke it? It probably wasn't even that much longer, because Ray broke that back in 2011. So it has been a good 10 years. It's hard to imagine Reggie had that much longer. Yeah, I guess I would have just liked to have seen Ray be like, hey, I was a great shooter and I could have been, I think the record would have been a bit closer if I had the same light as he had. But at the end of the day, he changed the game and I can't, he's about to take the title. I guess that's all we really wanted to see. But I'm also not a basketball player or a former basketball player with an ego. And I don't mean that in a negative way. If you played in the NBA, you, like Charles Barkley once said, have a reason to have an ego. You do. You were one of the greatest players in human history and on the planet at the time in human history. So you have all the reason in the world to have that ego and feel the way that you do. But it's not close. As Drake said 3 months ago, sitting over there in denial. It's not neck and neck. I don't know what's going on with me today, man. We're gonna go ahead and go to neutral. I only had 18 or something minutes of unhappy. Like I said, this will probably be a regular size podcast today. In the neutral, we can go ahead and actually, just perfect transition. I have Matisse Thybulle's defense on Curry in neutral because I don't necessarily care one way or the other. I'm not a Warriors supporter. I'm not a Warriors hater. But boy, Thybulle gave Curry a hell of a time. That's one. And two, I believe I saw a stat that said he was the first player to ever block his Steph Curry shot twice. He did that. And it speaks to a larger point, and it's something that I actually brought up last week. So before we get to that, though, Curry had 18 points. He was 6 of 20, so shot 30%, shot 3 of 14 from 3. If you have not been watching, he's very clearly gunning for the record, which I think is kind of detrimental. Because he's literally just, it's at points he's chucking. Against the Blazers, I feel like he was really just chucking. I think he took exactly 16 or 17 threes, which is what he needed for the record. So it kind of feels like he came into that game and said, I'm breaking the record. Or I'm going to try, at least. I'm going to give myself the shots to try. And it's making the process a little bit unenjoyable because seeing him, you could tell it feels a little bit rushed, and seeing him throw up those shots to get to it's kind of ruining. It's not ruining anything. He's going to get the record. He's going to shatter it after that. He's going to have many more great days. It just sucks that these last few games to get here are more like limping to the finish line rather than bursting through it naturally. Anyways, didn't happen in Philly. That was a loss for the Warriors. And the Sixers did a lot of what the Suns did in the first game that they won when Mikal Bridges and whoever was guarding pick and roll made Steph Curry's looks very, very difficult. And I said in that pod, that's the one thing with the Warriors right now is they are not last year's Warriors, but at times a defense, if they have to, will treat it as if they're last year's Warriors. Because Jordan Poole is awesome and Andrew Wiggins is awesome, but they're not consistent second option stars / superstars. Teams are still comfortable, and I'm wondering as the season draws on, are they going to be more comfortable with just saying, hey, we'll live if Poole heats up, or we'll live if, like against Orlando Magic, Wiggins has a career night from 3. I feel like with teams that are capable, you're starting to see that. So Phoenix did that, and Philly puts Thybulle on Curry, and if they use a pick to shed him, the defender, big man defender, or whoever's on the other side of that is up really high. They're trapping. One of the traps worked really effectively because instead of making the next pass, Curry tried to make a good read and throw a skip, but he just missed through it and it went out of bounds. So the Sixers defensive pressure was effective there. So it shows that Klay Thompson isn't really just a luxury. He's, for them to go on to win, it's a necessity, I would say. Because as the season wears on and as if you get into a playoff series, that is the exact defensive strategy. If a team has a good team that has the defensive strategy to deploy that, will absolutely do that. They will harass Curry. They will harass him. And it worked for the Sixers because in that fourth quarter, I don't know exactly what Golden State shot, but nobody else could hit a shot. It was just at a certain point, guys were getting looks because of the attention that Curry was demanding, and they just weren't dropping. And that's what teams will live with. And so if you were in a second round or conference final series with the Warriors and you're a contending team yourself, you 100%, you'll do that. So Clay's return is going to be pretty timely. Warriors are still fine, and it's still a really good team. Don't want to give the impression that I don't think they could do anything serious without Clay. They've proven that it's a smarter team. They've proven how good they can be. But that is the one thing, is every single game, I'm going to go say every single game the Warriors have lost this year, Steph has had a bad game. And that also doesn't seem like breaking news or anything elaborate, but it also just feels like it speaks to the fact that if he doesn't, especially against good teams, if it's not him, then who? That's kind of what you get. So we already saw against Philly, bad game. They lost to the Spurs. That was another bad game for Curry there. He was 5 of 17 from 3, 7 of 28 from the field. Yeah, that looks like a bad game to me. Lost to Phoenix. We already know that was a bad game. We went on that last week. Lost to the Charlotte Hornets. When they did that, he was 7 of 22. Their only other loss was against the Memphis Grizzlies, and I know off the top of my head that was a bad game for him. Yeah, that was 11 of 29, 7 of 20 from 3. Still had 36 points because he hit 7 threes, got to the free throw line a good bit. But the shooting, yeah, I think that was the game he didn't score in fourth quarter or OT or something like that. So yeah, the if not Steph then who thing is a legitimate worry. If Clay were to come back and get hurt again, or if he was to come back and not really be himself, that is because when it comes to playing the Warriors and stuff, you just choose what to die by, basically. And so you'll die by Andrew Wiggins if that happens, even though the propaganda is all well and alive. He's having a great season for himself. I've even started to hear some All-Star campaign rumblings. I saw Klay Thompson say that. It wasn't me, I promise. Well, that's like I said, I'm neutral on it. I didn't put in an unhappy section because not a Warriors fan. I love watching Curry play. I'm not a Warriors fan. But shout out to Thibault, because I'm not sure if his defense has been the same this season, but he just locked in for that game, and the Sixers locked in for that game, and it was a good win. The Wizards slide. Last week I said that I recommend Wizards basketball. I just wanted to clarify. I do recommend it. I think it's at times better to watch. This is why I hate having to explain like every little detail. It's better to watch Wizards basketball than it has been in a minute, but it feels fair to acknowledge that they are 4 or 6 in their last 10 games. They are now 7th. They're 15 and 12. But the reason that that's in neutral and not unhappy or anything is because we all knew that slide was coming. They were first seed for what was that? First 2 weeks, first 3 weeks or something like that. We know that's not a legitimate first seed team. That was the easiest call since, I don't want to say the Hawks because they remained in the first seed at least. They remained up there. Yeah, there definitely has been a bit of a slide though. Yeah, Utah just absolutely picked them apart. I think that's where you saw the difference between what type of team Wizards are and what type of team a contending team is. I will say though, with them, it is interesting because like with the Warriors, when Curry has a bad game, you see they don't win. I feel like with Washington, you can look and say if Montrezl Harrell doesn't have his regular, I don't know, 15 and 9, because that's what it feels like. He plays a 6-man role, so that's what it feels like every time you either watch the game or you wake up and you see what they did the next morning. You look at the box and they won, you go immediately, you say, oh, Trez had a monster game off the bench. That really seems to be the trend though in their losses. I'm not going to look through all their losses, but just what I've seen. I guess this will probably flow into talking about the Jazz too, because I got some things to say about them. Yeah, if you look, yeah, see, he in this one, he didn't necessarily play bad, but against the Jazz, he only had 9 points and 5 rebounds, so it's a very mundane performance from him. Gosh, they had a loss against the New Orleans Pelicans. Sheesh, a big one too. And there, you're going to be able to see, he only had 10 points and 9 rebounds. Nothing elaborate, just want to point that out. Trez, when he dominates, the Wizards win. Seems like it's typically because those are the games where he's caught teams lacking by simply being in the right spot, being in the dunker spot. waiting for the defense to collapse and for the ball to come to him, and he's just constantly there. Or he's rebounding and cleaning up the glass and putting it back that way. So that's been a big thing for them. But it has not been the Bradley Beal show. I guess that's a big thing for the Wizards. It hasn't been the Bradley Beal show this year, and they've, to this point, been better, but the expected slide is here, and now they're kind of in that play-in territory, which is where they should stay in this conference. I'm hoping ATL is able to, and they're dealing with injuries right now too, so it doesn't help, but if they're able to kind of replicate what they did last year, Atlanta should eventually move up. But the East, once again, if you're looking, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Chicago, Miami, Cleveland is good right now. Cleveland is a good team. And it's Philly. That right there is all 6 slots. So at most, you could say maybe Cleveland should fall into the play-in and Atlanta should at some point take their spot. But that might not happen because Cleveland is just, they're clicking. And they're getting better progressively. And Garland has stepped right into that role like I thought he might when Sexton went down. So that hasn't even been a massive regular season blow to them. So yeah, Washington should probably, I think they might be at their resting place. And it's interesting because, should I take that here? Not, yeah, because there's no reason for me to wait 30 minutes to get to that point. I didn't realize that this is Bradley Beal's last committed season on his contract. It came up because I guess somebody asked him about it, and he was saying he doesn't want to re-sign early, basically like Giannis did, and then find out he's unhappy, which means this could, and nobody's talking about it at all, probably because he's not having the same monstrous season that he had. His scoring is way down this year, but also his field goal attempts are down too. Yeah, he has a player option for next season, so he makes his $34 million here. He can go play for a contender. And I would say, like, with what's happening in Washington right now, I would hope he would leave. Once again, it sounds messed up because, like, damn, Dom, you got to get small market teams. Everything, motherfucker. I don't want to watch superstars never compete because they can never get a contending team. But anyways, jokes aside, if you're Beal, and if this is as good as it gets, because this is a good season for them compared to the years where it's him averaging 30. I mean, and Westbrook played a big part in that last year too. But in years where it's no John Wall or no other reputable name next to him, this is considered an up year, and an up year for them is once again basically going to be what it was last year. It's a first round out. It's just the process of getting there isn't as ugly because they didn't start off looking like a lottery team. So if that's the ceiling in Washington and nobody's coming there, and I guess at that point it would be, okay, do you feel like you can win a championship with Spencer Dinwiddie and Montrezl Harrell and Kuzma? Is that core group going, and Avdia, is that core group going to develop into a contender in the East? He's already 28 years old. How long do you have for that to, in this Eastern Conference, how long do you have for that to develop into a contending team? So yeah, I found that really interesting that he hadn't committed, and that hadn't even really been talked about until now, and he might not commit. And so a former leading scorer might be up on the market. Boston. Yeah, that's my neutral. I guess the Wizards might have been in the happy section. They have definitely slid down to neutral. But then as long as they don't become a lottery team this season, I doubt that they'll slip into unhappy. But did want to give them a little bit of a mention there as things start to settle into the natural order. All right, now we can move into happy. A little bit more in this section. DeAndre Jordan. The stats. This one did not go into the tweet section because tweets, I found it on Twitter, but it's not necessarily, that's not what the tweet section is for. Lakers Film Room tweeted on December 10th, since taking DeAndre Jordan 5 games out of the starting lineup, the Lakers are 9th in offensive rating. They were 24th before then. 5th in defensive rating. They were 19th before then. 5th in net rating. They were 24th before then. Somebody asked, why doesn't it feel like it then? And, he went into the explanation about how frustrating the season has been. And DJ is not the only negative thing about the Lakers team. But I have it in the happy section, not because I am preying on his downfall. Heard he's a cool dude, not preying on his downfall at all. It just kind of seemed like from day one of that signing, it was common sense that he should not get a great role just because he can roll to the rim. He shouldn't, that shouldn't be worth having him on the floor with what he does to your defense and what he does to your spacing, because he doesn't necessarily seem like he's always in the best spots. And so the stats match the eye test. The Lakers are much better without him, although they are still mid at the moment. Which, by the way, why was that not... Did my stats not update? LeBron James was absolutely supposed to be in one of these. Fucking Microsoft Word, bro. Throwing me off my game live on a podcast, because I definitely updated this. Because LeBron is going back. And says, yeah, see, that was supposed to be in the neutral section, motherfucker. Man, I guess it'll go in the happy section and whatever. Because I'm happy to see LeBron back, and we're talking about the Lakers anyways. This shit really didn't update, bro. The cloud service is so janky. It's crazy. LeBron is back in LeBron mode. And I'm almost a little bit sad because I heard in the broadcast of the Magic game last night when he was doing his thing against Orlando, the commentator said, yeah, this is vintage LeBron. My heart stopped. Not us calling it vintage Bron now. No, God! Not already. I say already as if it's not year 19, but just being, just having grown up with it, that's hard to hear. Because that's what you start to say when guys haven't really been themselves as of late. And because LeBron has been dealing with injuries all year, now this is where we're at. Because the Lakers have more or less sucked. They haven't really been a contending team. Yeah, you start to hear things like that. Anyways, LeBron has thrown it back into God mode, and I'm happy to see that, just because I'm just not ready to not see him be great anymore yet. But also, I would say just having reservations with it. Is it great when he has to go berserk to beat the Orlando Magic? That game was close until halftime. Is it great when... I guess that's not a great example for the OKC game, because they had that game in hand the entire time. But before that, it was a loss to the Ja Morantless Memphis Grizzlies, who are also I don't want to say an anomaly, an interesting study, because I know I wrote them down too. I'm just gonna use a document on my phone, bro. I'm about to throw this shit through the window. This is insane. Yeah, they lost that game, and that one had more to do with defensive effort. But that's the thing, though. With the Lakers, they have to more or less choose one to be great at right now, because of the personnel on the roster, and because unless they just absolutely finesse somebody, I don't know how they're gonna get some of these chips that are becoming available at the trade deadline that would make their team better, especially defensively. And so, if they're not going to be a good defensive team, you kind of need you need Bron to do this against everybody. Mid teams, great teams, bad teams. And that means he's not going to be able to coast. He's not going to be able to do his normal thing where he just kind of ramps up into the playoffs. He has to be on that at all times. So right now, it's looking like at best get them a 4th seed. The way it's looking, I think they've dragged a little, unless they just go on something massive, they've kind of dragged a little bit too far behind to ever catch up to a team like Utah. I can't even say that, because protocols are just picking teams and players right now to knock out. But yeah, Utah is a whole 5 games ahead. That would have to be protocols to the way it's going, how good Utah looks and how bad a team like LA looks. I don't see that switching. So it seems like 4th is kind of the best almost anybody can do if you're not in that top 3. So it's good to see DJ not getting major rotation minutes. Speaking of which, did that trend continue? So we know he's not getting those starter minutes anymore. Last week, I mentioned that he was no longer in the rotation. Let's see if Vogel is endearing himself to y'all a little bit. So yeah, oh gosh, yeah. So there was 3 DMPs here. And then there was 11 minutes and there was 9 minutes. It's an improvement. It's an improvement over 20 minutes. I don't know. 11 might still be like 5 too many. Anyways, yeah. But against the Magic, you were able to see LeBron even get out in transition, or the Lakers get out in transition, and it reminds you like what a beautiful thing it is, what Westbrook was really supposed to add to this team besides anything else he might have brought. You look at if they weren't constantly taking the ball from out of bounds, all of a sudden you've got Westbrook and LeBron running together, which is a beautiful sight, and you just don't get to see nearly enough of it this year. But that's pretty much the extent of what I have to say with the Lakers, because there's not a whole lot to talk about at this point. I'm almost not even that moved by getting up and watching them or recapping what they did the night before. I still do it, but it's at this point it just kind of feels like this is who they are. You got Anthony Davis, who is out right now, so at least it's not AD and LeBron, because then there'd be a major slide. So you're getting Braun, Westbrook, Avery Bradley, Horton Tucker type lineups. It's strange because then Avery Bradley just went off for 22 on OKC, but then also he hadn't been great or even really good the rest of the season, and then they're behind the Clippers too in the standings, which is also something you didn't expect to walk into this year. But above 500, 15-13, and still, if you can, this is a good sign to see LeBron not wincing and grabbing at his stomach and putting up dominant numbers. As long as you have that, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you like that this team could beat a top team as they are right now. They couldn't. I don't think they could beat any of the top 3 teams. Utah would just have to melt down to lose to LA, because structurally and team wise they are just better, which I don't have the Jazz in the happy section, and I feel like I was supposed to talk about them in relation to another team, but I guess I will do it now. Yeah, I guess I just had to make a mental note of that, because the Utah Jazz are on the league's longest winning streak right now. A 7 win straight. They are 10-3 on the road, 5-0 in the division, 10-2 in the conference. They sit only 2.5 games behind Golden State, who is now second. Phoenix is first. Donovan Mitchell is better this season. That's one of those guys you expect improvement out of every year. So I think his decision making has definitely gotten a bit better. But the team as a whole flows a bit better too. They have more options now. It's like I said with the JaVale McGee thing, those very small changes that you don't look at in the offseason, but they do and can make a big difference. So when you've got, and I've mentioned this before, the center rotation being Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside, that is kind of a lot to deal with in terms of rim protection. But then also even adding Rudy Gay just gives them different lineup options, which is interesting to me for the playoffs. Not because Rudy Gay is going to win you a series, but just because what if there's times in the game where, I don't want to say that, first of all, I don't think the Jazz are ever going to win a series where you had to bench Gobert or anything. But for certain minutes where, say, hey, our big man rotation is not what we want to run in this series. That totally depends on the matchup. So if you have Gobert, obviously, and he's getting cooked, obviously subbing him out for Hassan Whiteside is probably not fixing that problem, because it's more than likely happening outside of the paint. But all of a sudden, Rudy Gay gives you an option that I don't know if they've had great versatility with in past years in terms of smaller lineups. Because we're at that point where it's, strangely enough, you can put Rudy Gay in one of those, depending on the matchup, you might end up with Rudy Gay playing one of those big men positions. And so that's just something that they can do. It's not a big numbers thing, but gives you some shooting there. He's still got a bit of bite left in him on his drives if guys are having to run out to him, because on this Jazz team, you've got to run out to, and that's in a lineup like that, you kind of have to run out to everybody in terms of threes. And even though I'm about to look that up, that's not the best thing about them. I'm not even sure if saying that Utah has been typecasted as a certain team online is a thing I would say in terms of their play style, because I feel like just no one really cares about them, so you don't hear that type of thing. But 2020 May season, Rudy Gobert is having I only laugh because he would just have this this dislike for that guy. Speaking of which, I'm just gonna probably mix that into the happy section. Some of the stuff that was in my interesting section is just getting tagged along as I'm talking about this teams. It might even be like that going forward. Like, people just don't generally respect him as a rim protector. That's something that Ant was talking about. Leaders, there we go. I was literally just looking, bro, this is so unnecessarily difficult. I was literally just looking for the 3-pointers. Yeah, in terms of 3-point percentage, wow, it's the Hornets. That's surprising. So the Jazz are the 3rd best 3-point shooting team in terms of percentage right now at 37%. And that absolutely matches. But one of the things that's opening that up is Rudy Gobert. Because, I was just talking about DJ and he doesn't spread the floor, but it's also like he doesn't really know, not that he doesn't know where to be, he's just not good at being where he needs to be on this specific team. The thing when you watch the Jazz is Gobert is really good at being where he needs to be and moving certain places to make the defense do certain things, to open up for his teammates or get himself a dunk or get himself in good rebounding position. He is good at that. That's one of the things that you saw when they beat the Wizards. They just couldn't do anything with him. It's off of a pick and roll. He's gonna move into a certain position, or there's gonna be a certain play, because Quinn Snyder's got great sets too. So there's gonna be a certain play where Gobert's positioning is just gonna put his defender in a tough position, and so now you're looking at giving up a shot or a dunk, and that's all Gobert really has to do is dunk to be effective in that. Now you do wonder again, how does it end up translating to the playoffs, especially when you're looking at what you might give up on defense. But as of right now, I even talked about it. Killing the Blazers isn't anything impressive, but that's what I was kind of alluding to describing when I talked about the Blazers game last week. Is his movement is literally the fact that he knows when to slip, he knows how to counter what the defense is doing. It's like, okay, now you got Gobert rolling to the rim wide open. Do we move over and then give up a corner 3-pointer, or do we let him get the stunk? And it's working right now. It is working out for Utah. They've got better lineups. They're shooting well. All of this, not to say that I believe in them and that they're going to win a championship. I just say that they're better than people think. But no, if you're asking me if I believe in them for the playoffs, technically I'm saying a whole lot of nothing, because I don't believe that they would take down one or both of Utah and Phoenix in their position. Hell, I think they would have to go through both of them. My bad. Phoenix or Golden State is what I meant. Don't think that would happen. I still believe that they will be mismatch hunting. And teams generally don't fear them, even though it comes from a weird place. Because I'm not going to lie, that was strange. So if you're not aware, what I was kind of talking about a little bit earlier is Anthony Edwards, which I did put in my podcast graphics. Anthony Edwards, after the game that they lost by a lot, by the way, said the best rim protector in the league is Kristaps Porzingis on Rudy Gobert, and was honest. Anytime I go against Porzingis, I don't get no layups. I don't get why we couldn't finish on Rudy Gobert. He don't put no fear in my heart. I don't know why. But it was just still strange because, and that's Ant's personality too. He just has a funny personality like that. He's prone to say funny things like that. So I guess you just don't read much into it, being that they got killed that game and they're not healthy. Once again, that's just the story with the Wolves. They won last night, but before that it was a slide because Russell was out. So the Wolves just kind of are where they are. But what he said is how that kind of echoes how guys more mature than him feel, though. And you can see it when teams play the Jazz. If any guard or forward with the ball gets a switch on Gobert, they immediately ISO. They have no fear trying to shoot over him or just create the space. They don't fear him. So, as I've already said, until they get into the playoffs and they beat a team that people don't think they can beat, all of this would just be air to everyone. The lineup versatility, the absolute astounding amount of pressure that Gobert is putting on teams at the rim, which is opening everything else up, which is why they're a top 3-point shooting team. All of that will be air until he practically doesn't get played off the floor by a bad matchup. Yeah, that's basically where it is. But it's worth a mention, though. Utah Jazz are at least worth a mention. Oh, it's so funny. It just feels like this is at least 2 seasons now. This has been a thing with them. 2020 season, I think it was more dark horse, but can't even call them dark horse anymore because they've been here for a while now. And so now people just don't care. I don't blame you. Brandon Boston went off against Boston. And this is one of those where it feels kind of like a payoff for me, just because I'd been keeping up with the G League this year. And so I was well and present when he dropped 40 something points in the G like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what I look for in there a lot of the times is, hey, would this translate to the NBA? And the thing with Boston is he's got the tools for it. So it's not just like you watch Taco Fall in the G and it's like, okay, he's not going to be able to post up Jared Allen like that. He's not posting up Gobert like that. So it's fun, and Taco Fall it's a very fun thing, but in today's NBA, that's not happening. And we see a guy like Boston step in, and he's got the length, and he's going off the dribble, and he can beat you and get to the rim. There's an assortment of ways to get to his jumper, and the shot is looking confident behind the line. When you see things like that in the G, you're like, okay, something like that. Maybe he's not going to get it off as easy in the NBA. Defenders are going to be stronger, better, faster. But you can see the tools where it's like there's an opportunity. So Paul George was out. There's major opportunity when you're playing the Boston Celtics always this year. It's just kind of how it is. And he seized it. He had probably around 27 points. Stepped right into the role. And that's literally all it is for a lot of guys. It makes you wonder how many players are out there that could have not just a night like that, but a certain type of career if they just had a better shot at it. Because reality is, Paul George plays for that team. Offense is going to go through him. Maybe even once he's back, you'll get. It's going to be a while. I'm not predicting a Boston super impact this year, but in years to come, I could definitely see him playing in lineups with. I don't know if you could fit him with PG and Kawhi. It depends which team you're playing. But they got him at pick 51, man. They got him at pick 51. He fell. I think it was. I was talking to Coach Nick about that. I met him in LA, by the way. I know he was saying, in the college program he was playing in, it consistently hides talents like that. So you got a guy with tools to be on the wing on a team that already has championship wings when they're healthy, and so that's fun. That's a name you should remember. I can't believe I didn't bring him up on the G League section of the podcast when it happened. But yeah, Brandon Boston is a gem for the Clippers. So if you don't have your agenda out on him, or you don't have some low price stock, I recommend that. Of course, still don't know what's going to happen with Kawhi this year. So that's more of a thing going forward. That could be a big deal for them. I guess that should transition to what the Hornets did this week. Which they've lost some games, absolutely, but they've been competitive, even though their team has also been terrorized by COVID. They're like second in line to the Bulls. That caused them to bring up some guys that we have talked about here, though. Book Knight and Thor. We've definitely talked about them on the pod. At least we've talked about Thor, because I saw him play in the G, and knowing that the Hornets are going to need a different element than Plumlee one day. Thor brings different things, but it might be better for them. Either way, the timeline got moved up because everyone got protocoled, which brought Book Knight in, and he had a pretty good game throughout the week. He had some good moments. He had a 20-point game, I believe, or something close to it. They're playing these guys in the clutch, so that's also one of the payoff things. I hate that it's happening because of COVID, but also it is kind of cool to see these guys in their G. Then they bump up. And all of a sudden, you've got Thor having one of the most electric career opening buckets I've ever seen. They've been dunked on Drummond so hard, and that was his first 2 points. It was cool because that's what I saw him do at the lower level, was just dunking people's lives away. And his name is Thor. You can't make this up. And he has the Hornets commentators to put that together for him. You just simply can't make that up. And in that same game, in the fourth quarter, Book Knight caught just a one-handed crazy putback. It looked better because he's small, and so yeah, he ran up, caught that tied the game. Just cool to see these guys getting actual run, but obviously, with the situation being what it is, they lost both those games to Philly. You can only do so much when PJ Washington and Nick Richards are maining Embiid. That's just don't have much to go to. But it's next man up for them. It is next man up for the Hornets. They are in the 8th seed. In their last 10, they are now 5-5. You just kind of hanging on for dear life. Now, keep on buzzing. But I'm glad to see these guys getting some real NBA reps, because the Hornets have got some talent that they're farming down there, and if they're able to ever put it all together, hey man, get the stock. It's not necessarily cheap anymore, but worth the investment. Speaking of stock and investing, people would be selling on the Pacers right now because they're ready to rebuild. Indiana Pacers are finally ready to rebuild. I think they got kind of a raw deal this year in a couple of ways. First off, weeks ago on the podcast, I was drawing my Eastern Conference line behind them. I was saying Orlando and Detroit were the only teams I didn't really see as eligible. It's still technically that way. Indiana is only a game and a half out of the play-in, so they could still be in the play-in even if they make a trade. But they're 12-16. The lineup, their starting lineup, when they were having the slow start at the beginning, only got to play a limited number of games together. So it's not just like they had this talented lineup that was losing. They didn't get a lot of minutes together. But there's that. There's the fact that I don't think Carlisle is really getting the most out of Sabonis. He can do more. There'll be a night where I see Sabonis is only taking 8 or 9 shots, and I'm just kind of like, what? Seems like it's happening a bit too frequently. Either way, Indiana's ready to sell. So they're ready to sell Karis LeVert and one out of the 2 I've heard of Sabonis and Miles Turner. All right, so in Sabonis, you've got a rim protecting shooting big. I wanted him in Boston once upon a time. In Sabonis, you've got a guy who is going to beat you up in the post. He's going to make excellent passes. He's going to hit some elbow shots. It's not necessarily the floor spreading. Like, if you don't watch Indiana or you never pay attention to Sabonis, you might just assume you can stick him on the 3-point line and be fine. That's not really his game. It does a lot more than that. So for them, it's going to be about ending up in the right place, namely on a contender. Of course, Karis LeVert, you're going to get a scorer out of him, so there's plenty of teams that can use a shot in the arm, however they're going to use him, whether they brought him off the bench or they plugged him into the lineup. Plenty of teams can use a nice shot in the arm with scoring from Karis LeVert, so that's one thing. But in Sabonis or Turner, I think you get, on the right team, you get like championship odd altering play, not just out of them, just in the correct system that you put them in. For instance, if there was any way possible that Miles Turner ended up on Golden State, which I don't necessarily think there is, because I don't see why the Warriors would be trying to make a move that big, given what they would have to move. But if that did happen, oh man, that would be kind of insane to imagine his shooting on that team, and then so you're gonna have him rim protecting on one end and spreading the floor on the other, and even maybe giving you a post-up option if needed, which I don't think Golden State would go too much. But oh boy, that'd be disgusting. For them to pull something like that off, maybe it would even have to be a 3-team deal, but they would absolutely have to let go of some of their young guys, which I'm not sure what the front office wants to do. Especially because they're winning right now, they really might be content with plugging Kuminga into the lineup sometimes, and then other times just letting him play in the G and dominate in the G, because that's what he's doing, by the way. If you didn't realize, Kuminga is on assignment a lot of times for Santa Cruz Warriors, and he's down there. He's developing nicely. He clearly can play in the NBA, and you see that when he's down there. And so yeah, you're just farming him right now, and you can just kind of keep him in the oven for a little bit. And next thing you know, if they need him to fill in next year, or if a guy goes down, now you've got that. Or as the Warriors start to age out a little bit, I don't really know if you're putting all your hope in Kuminga. There would have to be some other guys there. So maybe you do say, hey, you know what, whatever package this takes, he would have to be involved in it, because they're not giving up any of their core guys, I don't believe, anyways. I have no clue how he could ever end up on the Lakers. So that's not. I just don't. Again, that would have to be a 3-team deal. Sabonis, even. I don't want to just do like a plug and play for the Warriors. So. But knowing what Sabonis brings and his IQ, if you ever seen him pass, Oh gosh, that would be, man. Bonuses passing installed in the Warriors offense. Come on now. Don't let that happen. Let's just keep things where they are right now. But it'll be interesting to see who else draws interest. I haven't seen so many other trade scenarios yet. I think that's one of those that's probably going to drag down until like January, February. Going to get you closer to the trade deadline. It's going to be interesting to see which one of them goes. If they're not selling both. And it kind of feels like it only makes sense for contending teams. I don't really know what Celtics trade situation is right now on pieces, so I'm not about to imagine Miles Turner there, but obviously they could use him. That would make them better. But they're ready to rebuild. Pacers are ready to blow it up. Right choice. Hey, this is the right choice. Portland, take notes. When you're stuck and you don't see a way forward and you're just kind of you're either going backwards or your wheels are turning in place. It's like, all right, look, it's time to sell a couple of these and move in a new direction. So shout out to Indiana for doing that, because there's no path for that, the core that they have right now, to ever be a contending team. They could be decent. They were decent in the last few years. And before guys got hurt, even last year, I think they were pretty decent, but it's nothing more than just like an interesting series against a better team. So good for you, Indiana. And good for you, Houston. They've started losing again. They lost the last 2 games, but bravo on the adjustments that led to the winning streak. Very simple. Stop playing 2 bigs, which is interesting because against the Grizzlies, they went back to that. Tice played 18 minutes. He was in the starting lineups. Why? I don't know. He does not spread the floor. Kind of feels like that's goes backwards a little bit, especially when you've got what Şengün is doing. And that wasn't a loss against the Bucks, but it was a competitive loss. They were competitive with them. Giannis dominated, because how is he not going to? Certain teams you put Giannis against and it's just bull in a china shop type deal. But I'm used to Giannis 40 balls and him just wrecking people now. Şengün was... I'm just more fascinated. I'm a lot more fascinated. Not more fascinated, but fascinated by what he's doing. It's a rookie. We've talked about him a little bit. Talked about his playmaking probably last week. But his footwork that you see on display a lot throughout this season, it was all in the Bucks game. He has some of the most unorthodox finishes. Is that how you say that? His finishes are very unorthodox. They are the weirdest that you've seen since, hell, Jokic. Not comparing him to Jokic. But if you watch him play, he has these really, really weird flip shots that go with unorthodox footwork. He pulled out a Hakeem move on Bobby Portis, and he was eating, by the way, against Bobby P, which is once again one of those things where I talked about Brook Lopez already, but just so I can bring an example to what I was saying, I don't think these things really bother them in the regular season, but when you start seeing guys putting their body into Portis and maybe playing a little bit of bully ball down there, I think that's when you realize you might be able to use Lopez and him just kind of putting his hands up and protecting the rim down the stretch. But either way, it's a Şengün section. Yeah, the footwork is crazy. Does it most of the time without traveling. So you're getting spins down there. You're getting multiple moves, and then a really weird flip with the wrong hand facing the wrong way. The ball just goes in. That's exactly the type of thing that Jokic does. It just is. So that to go with his playmaking, buy your Şengün stock, and Houston invest in him more. I can't imagine why you would. And the Grizzlies, you're playing the Grizzlies and you're going against Steven Adams. So I guess you say you want some size there, but your game planning, you're going against your game plan has been successful to scheme against Steven Adams. It doesn't move me. I can't imagine why you're starting Tice in any more games after what just happened. Can't imagine why you're starting him in any more games this season, other than there's some orders coming down from the top saying, we're not really trying to win. This is cool and all, and this is nice for the city, but at the end of the day, we need to move this rebuild along, so just chill on the streak real quick. Because they have nice pieces. I talked about Jae'Sean Tate last week. Talked about... I've been filling your ear with Şengün nonsense. We've also known Christian Wood for a while. Know that John Wall wanted to come back. You're developing Kevin Porter. And then you've also got Gary Bird, or Matthew Garrison. He has got a ratchet. He's got a real ratchet. Real range, real ratchet. Another reason that they were in that Bucks game and competitive. He is also a guy that hails from the G League, and he's found a home here in Houston. He's found a spot, and he's legitimate. He's not just a guy that's a nice story. He's going to hit a couple of shots and disappear, I don't think. So you've got nice pieces there. And if you're Houston, I've already said it. Some people, not even some people who are fans of these teams don't want to see losing seasons, and a lot of them will jump to the thing, yeah, losing culture isn't good. And I agree with that. But also, no man's land is worse, I think. Nah, no man's land. I don't know if no man's land is worse than losing culture, but think Portland when you think no man's land. You don't want to get stuck with a roster that's just mediocre and you can't make any moves, and so you just have to tear it all down. I guess if you're Houston and you're in the back of the West already, just do everything you can to get as many pieces as you can. And what about how Jalen Green's absence is affecting this? Because there is a movement to get Rockets fans to turn on him, because they've been winning in his absence. I would say it's more of the causation and correlation thing. Jalen Green has got a while to go on his development, but I think it has more to do with not playing two big men at the same time, one of which can't shoot. I think that's helped a lot. I think they've got a lot of good pieces here, and I see ways in which Green could help. But I'm not ready to just say, oh, they're losing because he's constantly taking bad shots. He's definitely got some shot selection that I question at the moment, and I do in my head kind of wonder when he does come back, if the Rockets are still playing good basketball. I do kind of wonder in my head, like, okay, so when he wants to, when he's determined, hell or high water, he's shooting off of the screen, or he's taking this shot, and then now you're getting like 5 of 16 nights and stuff like that. I do kind of wonder how that fits into what's happening here, but I'm not ready to just go, oh, they took Jalen Green out and they're winning. I think that's kind of misleading and something that would happen if you're not necessarily paying full attention. But I will at least say I wonder. I do wonder. Because Green is young and he's got one of those personalities where he feels like he's got a ton to prove. He didn't like Cade Cunningham going before him. Oh, Cade. Yes, Cade is absolutely in the happy section too. Yeah, so that's my Rockets talk. Cade Cunningham, bro. Oh, that's in the interesting section. You know what? Maybe let me just actually get to that now. Yeah. Did I put that into surprising? Fuck you, Microsoft, bro. We about to boom Microsoft Word is what we doing. Yeah, we first of all, I'm gonna X out of Microsoft Word on my computer, and then we are fucking.
Shit went bad real quick.
Yeah, Microsoft Word just I updated it on my phone, and most of my, yeah, see, look at this shit, bro. I had Christmas Day on here. Now I'm gonna have to move that to interesting. What else did I miss, bro? We're gonna move to the surprising and interesting section, man. In the surprising and interesting section, Dave Bing. Now, if you're not familiar, you're not hip, Dave Bing played for the Pistons, hailed as a legend, all these good things. But why would he say this? He said last night, actually, when KD was dropping 50 on Detroit, I didn't really feel the need to dive into that in the pod because it's KD, which, by the way, I actually probably will because the MVP race is coming up. But anyways, Dave Bing on Cade Cunningham. He says, quote, I think he's going to be an all-star caliber player. I don't think he's a guy you build your team around. We still got to get that guy. We don't have it yet, in my opinion. We still got to get that guy we don't have, in my opinion. Okay, that was a typo on their part on the tweet. I also think our weakness is the backcourt. We got to get a good point guard. Yo, somebody responded to this thread and said Killian would give prime Dave Bing hell, respectfully. Hey, yo. Hey, yo. Hey, that's insane. All right, well, first of all, let me just do some due diligence because I feel like I'm losing my mind. Like, because I watched one thing on the screen and then I already know this in my head. Cade Cunningham, he's big and I get it for a point guard, but he is a point guard. Okay, so that's one issue I have with that. We got to get a good point guard. What? What are you talking?
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
You drafted Cade to play point guard, and he's so far in his, if you look at the whole season so far, I would say in coming off the ankle injury, he's shown good flashes. He's been pretty good as of late. We gotta get a good point guard. Reads like somebody who has not watched a second of Pistons basketball or him playing. Now, the Pistons suck. That's something that's just applies for the last 10 years, pretty much. But we gotta get a good point guard. You drafted him to play point, and he's going to be great in my opinion. That's something you say when a guy comes in and he's just busted. I don't think that's exactly what I was trying to say there
it's
at
getting
all.
Ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
Huh?
Yes,
What
man.
the hell
this is
was
ridiculous,
that?
man. Ridiculous.
That's not what I meant. That's something you say when a guy is already turned into a bust. So if let's just say Anthony Bennett was a point guard. No, fuck that. Anthony Bennett, power forward. After a season or two, you realize he's not that guy, and now you come in and say, yeah, we got to get a good power forward. You don't say that after how many games has Cade played? He's played 21 games. By the way, averaging 16 points and 6 rebounds with 5 assists. His shooting, so it's not that great. It's only at 38%. But first of all, it was worse when he started. He's playing on a team that does not give him the greatest space. Also think his assist numbers would probably be better playing with a better team. And then you just lost Jeremy Grant. So there's a lot of like caveats there. But for what you get out of a rookie guard that you drafted on a terrible team, I think, and who didn't start the season because he had an ankle injury, I think you're kind of optimistic about this, if anything, in Detroit. And so this Dave Bean comment reads like somebody who just hadn't paid any attention whatsoever. That's kind of crazy to me. Anyways, yeah, Cade is one of the things he shows. It sounds cliche, but fearlessness. They've played KD multiple times now. I've seen him go at the chest of both KD and Harden on drives. They're not great defenders, so it's not like saying, it's not like saying it like that way, but those are also the superstar players, and he's got that pedigree. His finishes sometimes are just downright incredible. Watched him go at AD and toss up a layup with just some beautiful English that even though he was going the opposite way, you got the soft touch, goes in. Against who was he? Oh my god, he was just taking somebody to task the other day. Who was that? When they lost against the Wizards, my boy picked on Daniel Gafford at the end of that game. Just drove him 1, 2, 3 times straight. It was getting kind of awkward. It was getting kind of. You ever been in a basketball game where somebody's getting like worked, and then it just starts to get a little bit quiet because it's like the elephant in the room? That happened when I was in college. This kid we were playing with just kept getting blocked. He got blocked on like 3 straight possessions, and we were upstairs and it was quiet because there was nobody there, and it was bleachers. Like we were upstairs, so the bleachers to the downstairs court were behind the goal, and so anytime the ball would hit that, you would hear the sound, that echo sound. And so he was getting his shit just blocked and towards the bleachers, and he just got quiet, and all you heard was the ball slapping the bleachers. And then my friend was just like, he just like addressed the elephant in the room. He was like, hey yo, what's good with the blocks? Dude was our teammate getting blocked like that. Eric was like, hey yo, what's good with the blocks? Anyways, that's an unnecessary aside. Yeah, Cade was just going at Daniel Gafford. I know a couple of the players, Wizards players, scratching their head like, bro, you good? Anyways, yeah, that's just Cade. Cade is gonna be great, man. Cade is gonna be good. I can't say that Detroit is gonna get good pieces around him, but he's gonna be good. I already see the makings there. And so, yeah, I've already used my boo on Dave Bean for the day. That's just some incredible weird analysis.
Get the fuck out of here with that shit.
But hey, I might sound stupid in a couple of years if Cade is like a bust or something. The Pistons might still suck in a couple of years. I will, just in case you come back and listen to this podcast, it might absolutely still be trash. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying I have no clue where Dave Bing is going with this. All right, I guess that takes me out of the Oh, I think I already went out of the happy section because that was Dave Bing's comment was in the interesting section. I guess since I missed Christmas Day, that was supposed to be in the unhappy, but I guess we can be a little bit not harsh on Christmas, right? Who wants to have hard feelings on Christmas? The schedule is looking interesting. I don't want to call it bad yet, but for like what I look forward to on Christmas Day, this so far is okay. So the Hawks and Knicks have both average records, but that doesn't. I think the Hawks are better to watch than their record says, so that's one thing. Trae Young is fun to watch right now, so he'll probably put on a show. I think they might be a little bit better than their record shows. The Knicks, on the other hand, though, they are faltering, trying to figure out what's happening with their rotations. Guys are also out. RJ Barrett just got health and safety protocol, which at this point is starting to feel like it might matter in 12 days. That's when Christmas is. And the Knicks just haven't been that great, but I feel like when I watch them, they haven't been like, because I'm not a fan of them, so it hasn't been like, oh, they just stink. This is bad to watch. I don't know if I felt like that, but it might be getting there because Julius Randle ain't an all-star this year. That regressed, and I know some people are beating their chest on that one right now. Because unless he's playing the Bulls, who are trying to guard him with point guards, I don't really know. I don't see that all-star pedigree from last year. But anyways, yeah, so Hawks and Knicks, just because of the history, or the recent history with that might be interesting, I guess. Bucks and Celtics. Maybe Tatum can give us a Christmas miracle, and that might be a great game, but the level that the Bucks are playing at, and how they normally play, and the big three is out there, and they're not getting assaulted by Caleb Martin, that is maybe not going to be the best game. But it also could be. Maybe Tatum will score 50 and all of a sudden we're competitive, but I'm not optimistic about it. Don't know which version of the Celtics effort you're going to get that day. Also, just a quick note about the Bucks, yeah, because pretty sure Caleb Martin must have just got erased. I guess the reason Caleb Martin, I didn't really get him on the podcast notes because he had an unexpected performance in beating the Bucks, and then he got health and safety protocol, so it just kind of took the wind out of it for me, I guess. But yes, the Heat's B team did defeat the Bucks. I think they gave them their first loss as a big three, which is strange. But yeah, Martin just got it going. And now he's out, so that's just depressing. Health and safety protocol is just depressing. I don't really have much to go on with that. There's other places you can look for starless Heat Bucks analysis. Suns Warriors, obviously, if everyone is back. Devin Booker's back in 12 days. Hamstrings are tricky, so I don't know. But if he's not back for that, bro, I'll rebel. I will rebel and just not even watch. But if he is back, then everything should be good. Everything should be healthy. That'd be nice. Nets and Lakers, still gonna be fun just because KD and LeBron. It's not the star-studded super record matchup we thought that it might be. Kyrie's not there. Who knows if AD will be there by that point. But if he is there, if both teams are at very least the healthiest versions of themselves, that still should be fun. KD and LeBron is seldom not fun, so that could be cool. And then there's Mavs Jazz. Hey, I'll enjoy watching Luka go against the Jazz, but everyone's going. Yo, but the people, that's by that time people are tired, probably checking out their gifts or eating the rest of eating some leftovers or something. I don't think many people are gonna be watching Mavs and Jazz, but for basketball purposes, I'll be watching it. I enjoy watching Luka play, and I enjoy watching the Jazz play. I just also think the Jazz are a lot better, and that might not end up being a good game either. So we'll see. But yeah, either way, it's a sus lineup. The only ones that I could kind of feel like I would guarantee a good game out of is Suns, Warriors, and Nets, Lakers. And then maybe you could get me there with Hawks, Knicks. But yeah, other than that, I don't know if I'm that excited. So I guess that's surprising. And this still didn't update, even after I exit out. Alright, so fuck you, computer. Yeah, phone for the rest of this. My bad, y'all. I'm being profane today. Is that the word? Is that the word for that? Profanity lays. Microsoft Word really just got under my skin. I'm sorry. Coaches say that the new ball is screwing with shooters. That is interesting because I remember when we changed changed basketball was in 2007 or whatever, when we used that really ugly basketball. There's some videos out there that you can probably watch with that. But now with the Wilson, we've heard some people say some things about it. Paul George spoke about it, I think. Somebody asked Halliburton about it while we were on stream, like when we streamed like a month ago probably. They asked him about the ball, and he said his thing was that they grew up, and this will actually flow nicely because we're about to talk about the Kings anyways. He said that they grew up playing with different basketballs like all the time, basically. So he didn't really feel like it was a huge issue switching to a different one this year. But I'm looking for some shooting stats right now for teams, because I just kind of want to see. One thing I did notice, Rusty Buckets brought it up last night, which was interesting. He said that once KD had the 50-point game, I think that was just him and Steph with 50-point games this year. I'm not sure how many 50-point games we normally have by this time in the season, but he was commenting that, does it feel kind of low? It's like, kind of maybe have a point there. And so, if you didn't know, also, while I'm just here, some interesting things. Cody Martin for the Hornets is leading the league in 3-point percentage. Not shooting that many, but it's almost shooting 50%. I guess that's not as difficult to do when you only take 2 of them, even as a small forward. Mike Conley's up there. How does this compare to last year is kind of what I want to see. This is useless without it comparing to last year. So let's do that. And it's not an accurate thing just because it's not, the season is not over yet, so there's many more threes to be taken. Yeah, the percentages are more or less they look pretty similar, honestly. I don't know. I would have to do like a full-on comparison and analysis for all that. Anyways, that just is something that the coach, my bad. I really shouldn't be just like doing math in my head while I'm podcasting. That's bad tactic. Yeah, no, that is interesting, but I haven't heard so much about it that it feels like they're gonna change it. So, like, I haven't heard players really complaining that much. And it's interesting because it comes in the same time as the rule changes. So it's almost like, which one is it? You can see, it's more tangible to be able to see when a call that was made last year isn't called and a guy is struggling. It's easier to see that than just some shots not going in because you don't know what to blame that on. We'll see though. We'll see. I think Wilson is here to stay probably. That doesn't mean they can't make some changes to it. So yeah, that does bring us kind of to the Kings, because the De'Aaron Fox trade is a thing that is now being discussed. Don't know if it'll happen this year, but that is also something that I said maybe 3 podcasts ago. I'm always gonna remind y'all when I said something before I said it. Give me my clout. Not really, but still. I'm definitely gonna remind y'all when I said something before it really broke. And the De'Aaron Fox thing is just one that had been floating in my head for a while because of the draft, because of the way they're drafting. And that was the specific quote anyways. It said GM Monty McNair drafted 2 guards in consecutive drafts. This was from Kevin O'Connor, by the way. So yeah, very credible. Drafted 2 guards in consecutive drafts despite having De'Aaron Fox on the payroll, which suggests to executives around the league that Fox will be his main piece for a big move. Yeah. Fox and Halliburton are cool. And last year, I thought that was cool, but I have also, I'm not even going to do the whole spiel again about how I said I think Halliburton's actually a point guard and not a 2. So I found it weird that I knew he was going to be starting one day, and then you put him there with Fox. I'm like, all right, to maximize this, I think it's like either Fox is PG or Halliburton is PG. I think the way the direction is moving for the Kings, if they don't end up getting Ben Simmons or something like that, even if they did, would Ben Simmons play point for them? I don't know. If they don't get another point guard in a trade for Fox, I kind of think Halliburton will eventually start for that team. I kind of think that's where they're going, not because they necessarily think he'll be a superstar point guard or anything like that, just because this group, as I said, I don't think it's going to go that far. And so you see what you can get for Fox, and then naturally your next best point guard on the roster would be Halliburton. It kind of seems like that's where to go, because I just don't think that squad is going anywhere as it's currently constructed. Less about that 2-guard rotation, and it's more about the whole team, really. But yeah, a Fox trade would be interesting. It's not having his best season. I think he was a bit better last year. That doesn't mean that there aren't teams out there that would bite at the chance to get him. So we'll see if that heats up as we get closer to February. But it was mentioned, and I think that is going to happen sooner or later. Unless there was just another trade out there and then they kept Fox and they instead moved Halliburton or some of the other guys. And then that would be a whole thing. But I'm not sure Kings management is going to really be getting in their bag like that. I would just be damaged if I was associated with the Kings. Not having Luka Doncic, I wouldn't be able to sleep. Chicago protocol should have been in the... Yeah, you know Chicago's protocol, the hell. I mentioned that at the beginning. Nobody's playing for them. The game should be postponed. Literally end of story. They've dug into their well as much as they could to get guys to fill in for the next spot. Ayo Dosunmu came in. I was like, okay, cool. Maybe he'll develop while DeRozan is out. Nope, he's out. So is everybody else. So Levine is out. Just horrible news for them. That's literally in the unhappy section. I have no clue why I copy and pasted into the wrong place right there. Just destroying all of the Bulls' momentum. By the time everybody comes back, who knows where they'll be. Just sheesh, man. Memphis continues without Ja. Mentioned it already. They're fourth, bro. They're fourth. They are fourth, and I guess it'll just be interesting to see what the defense is when he does come back. Right now, they're finding ways. Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks has had some performances. The whole they're moving as a team unit without their leader right now. When he comes back, it's kind of like the Jalen Green thing: causation, correlation, all that. That you're not a better team without Ja. Your ceiling is nowhere near as high without Ja, obviously. But I do wonder if some defensive principles roll over when he does get back. But they're fourth, bro. That's a big jump. That's a big jump because at the beginning of the season, when I saw Morant was taking that step, I was like, hey, how high would the Grizzlies need to be for him to have an MVP campaign? He's not playing right now, so obviously them being in the fourth seed doesn't affect that. But if they stay there, you're not going to win MVP. That's not gonna happen. You're not going to win it from the fourth seed. But I would, if he came back and for the rest of the season played at the level he did before he was out and they kept winning, I could see his name like in one of those 6 spots or something like that, setting up his future MVP run, the real one, when they get like 2nd or 3rd seed. But yeah, Memphis is the shock of the season so far. Without Morant, that's the shock of the season because they are legitimately competitive without him. It wasn't just a couple of games. They are legitimately competing without him, and we await the slide. It kind of feels like that you just keep waiting for them to finally run out of gas and start losing. It doesn't happen. It's a good team. That is a surprising team right now. That grit and grind just never leaves. I guess that's in the DNA. Once Tony Allen's jersey's up there, then Jan or Zebo, I guess it's just infused. Last thing I have in the interesting section, just a small note that Lauri Markkanen might have to serve in the Finnish military, which means that technically he wouldn't be able to finish the season. That would suck, just because Cavs tall ball is kind of their brand. It's the thing that they do. It's been working for them. And so that would absolutely be garbage if they got into a playoff series. And not that he is the most important player on the team, but rotations are really important. Now all of a sudden the guy you've had as your tall ball lineup, in your tall ball lineup rotation is gone, serving, doing a different kind of shooting. That's crazy. That's not the last thing. The last thing was the MVP race. I should have left that from, yeah. The MVP race. I think the 2nd or 3rd episode of the DomCast this season was called Steph's 3rd MVP. And it's funny because I tried to justify that when I was on the NBA show on Twitch last week, and I couldn't do it quick enough in my head. Because I use a lot of sarcasm and a lot of just like damn near trolling sometimes. But Steph is still leading. Steph is still leading. I did just want to say that it's definitely going to be a closer finish. With KD doing the things that he's doing in Brooklyn and them remaining first, which I don't know how long they can hold on to that, because once again, good teams come through. With schedule gets harder. Wonder if there's going to be a drop there. But also, not even that. Giannis is coming, bro. Yeah, he's doing everything he's been doing, but they're winning. And so with them winning basketball games and being healthy, now all of a sudden that 27, 11, and 5 with some 40-point games infused and defense, which by the way, he probably has to flex even more now, because without Brook Lopez, he's the guy that is gonna, because Bobby Portis not your rim protector. And so Giannis is the guy that might shift over into that position sometimes depending on the lineup, or shift into that role. Might juice that a little bit. He's giving you everything he normally does, besides the percentages probably being down, just because he's experimented with things more. But I mean, if the Bucks, where are they right now? Probably really close to first. They're second, 1.5 games behind the Nets. If I was a betting boy, and Harden still is only gonna have great games against like the Magic, then I would say Milwaukee's gonna end up first. They end up first. Giannis is doing these things, and they started injured. He moves up on this ranking really quick. And Steph, if he wants to become a solo 3-point shooter, that's just for the record. That's literally just for the record. He's just chucking right now. It doesn't help his case. Anyways, he's still first, but it's getting closer between that, because Giannis is gonna creep up. I wouldn't be surprised if he was second soon enough. But then there's also, man, it's crazy. Because I definitely had Jokic in my unhappy section, but it doesn't even matter because I would have had to discuss it twice. So that's one of the time Microsoft Word praying on my downfall actually helped a little bit. Jokic is having a better season arguably than he had last year. He's not going to get, well, okay, he is getting MVP love on the ladder because he's 4th right now, but he's not going to get close to being able to win it. The injuries his team has had, and with them fighting for a play-in spot, it's pretty much where they are right now. But it's so ridiculous the things that he's being able to do for this team in terms of passing. He absolutely just, I can't even describe how ridiculous it is to really just be able to look at somebody and shoot over their outstretched hand. As much as we talk about his passing and his weird finishes and him being a good shooter, one thing we might not talk about enough is, okay, here's Jonas Valanciunas, probably taller than Jokic. Outstretched hand, his wingspan, swiping at the ball, bothering him, and then sticking his hand up, body to body. And Jokic just leaps a little bit off the ground and shoots it and touches nothing but the bottom of the net. What even? There's no defense for it. There's no defense for that. That's called cheating, is what that's called. When you're shooting over your mannequin outside and it feels good because you're hitting those shots even though it's an outstretched hand, because maybe you're practicing taking some contested shots for that situation you might run into. There's times, and I would love to see the percentage that he shoots on these shots. There's times where he is literally shooting over mannequins. He did it against the Spurs last night from the 3-point line. Or was it last night? That might have been another night ago. But did from the 3-point line over Valanciunas. He's done it. That's not even a new thing. But that's on top of reading defenses 2 moves ahead so he can get a pass where it needs to go. At this point, just assume his statistics are historical, not just the regular ones. I'm talking about leading Nuggets and basically everything. He probably still is. He's absolutely getting screwed out of like real MVP conversation this year, because once you're at 4th place, you're not really, I don't think, unless something changes, you have to get out of 4th spot. I think the top 3 in any given year are probably the only guys who are really going to win it, unless it's just a super competitive year. The way it is this year with an injured Denver team, you got no chance out there. And people asleep on it. People asleep on it because really everything he's doing right now is just I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's futile. And Jamal Murray comes back, they'll be fun. I can't wait for him to come back because they'll at least be more fun and more fun of a playoff team. But I don't expect that to be able to carry them to some deep run. But that might be really annoying though for whoever ends up in that 1st seed. Don't think the Nuggets are going to be able to take out a 1st seed But if they end up in this situation where they're 8th or 7th, and they do get Jamal Murray back at the end because Jokic has basically just been carrying this as well as he could, now all of a sudden, depending on how fast he can ramp up, you're a really annoying first team to see in the playoffs. So even though the West has kind of fell off a little bit, you still might not get consolation. That might be your prize for being that good. They've got Jokic above Chris Paul, which is kind of like I said. That's why I thought Devin Booker, when he was healthy, I thought he would get more MVP buzz, because Paul is doing great for the Suns, but he's not doing enough that's going to get him over these guys. So I just don't think a Paul MVP campaign is realistic. They're first in the West right now, but there's just too many guys just playing better basketball. Paul is great. There's just too many guys playing better basketball for it to go to him. The Suns would have to get some significant separation of that first seed. And you're never gonna guess who number 6 is. It's Rudy Gobert. He was 10th last week. He has moved up to 6th, and he might be top 5 in the MVP race. All I'm saying about the Jazz, not saying they're going to championship or that I believe in them like that. I'm just saying, because I know nobody's really paying attention, that they are good. And Gobert provides value. That's all I'm saying. I want to be the guy that taking bullets for Rudy, but... And of course, after that, it doesn't really matter. Oh, Trae Young's name is here. That's great. I had said Trae Young's name was going to show up. I'm glad it is, because he's playing great basketball. The Hawks just got to get that record up. Yeah, good stuff. Great stuff in the MVP race. It is going to tighten. Steph can only afford to run around chasing this 3-point record for so long before he loses that spot. But yeah, as long as the Warriors keep playing great and he wows us a couple more times, he should still be good. Watch out for Giannis, though. I really think that's the big threat here. Once the Nets lose that first seed, I think that's the big threat. Moving on to the... I normally do G League here? Well, I'm gonna do tweets here for now. I only have one tweet. And it's not even on the Twitter police stuff. It was just something to mention that I should have mentioned in the Lakers section. But Tim_NBA, he tweets some really insightful NBA things. So see, this was absolutely supposed to go in the... I'm not even gonna do a tweet section, bro. I'm just gonna mention this here at the end. This will be in the interesting section. Yeah, fuck that. No tweet section this week, bro. No tweet section, because this is literally just a stat graphic. Saying that AD this year has the highest mix of distance traveled and average speed of any big. Saying that he bulked up. Does that lead to less stamina? Highest minutes per game since 2017-18. His offensive load ranks 4th among centers. He's near the top of every paint scoring category, and he's contesting more shots than he ever has, 6th in the NBA. He ends the tweet by saying, "Dude's tired." There's no player carrying the load he's carrying on both ends. Nobody. Well, that's the tweet. It's about Anthony Davis being tired, potentially. I'm assuming where he's going with that might be that's why he's part of why he's shooting so poorly this year. Picked a really bad year to shoot poorly, but I think he went more into that. I think his explanation was more so that he's not the shooter you thought he was in the bubble, which is fascinating to me when it comes to Anthony Davis, because either years are blending together for me, or Anthony Davis's bubble shooting was not what made me think that he was a good shooter. When he came to Los Angeles, remember the joke being that, oh, LeBron's about to turn him into a spot-up shooter. And I thought it was because of his floor spreading ability at that time that joke was even able to be made. So yeah, maybe his bubble numbers were inflated, but I thought he was a good enough shooter, or decent enough shooter for his size before that. And so now I'm just kind of looking up some of his distances. Like, okay, last year, 2018-19, with the Pelicans, field goal percentage by distance, you were getting, so 34% from 16 to 3, 40% from 10 to 16 feet, 38% from 3 to 10. So it's really that 10 to 16 feet, 40%. Hell, 2017, he shot 46% from 10 to 16. Then with the Lakers, that's where it kind of, before the bubble anyways, the Lakers, yeah, it's, well, 10 to 16 this year is where the most massive drop is. Now he shoots 32% from there. Ironically, though, 45% from 16 to 3. Yeah, so that's where the big drop is from the Pelicans days to now. So yeah, I mean, AD could... Maybe he wasn't the bubble shooter he was on the Pelicans, but I 100% do remember him coming to LA, and I'm like, oh, a big man that can handle the ball, that can play big in the post, and that can shoot. So that's interesting. Maybe AD is tired this year. It's on defense, now that the Lakers don't have good defenders outside of him, really, that is a lot more responsibility being poured on there. And especially when you have to use it more, as evidenced by the tweet saying he's contesting more shots than he ever has. Again, guys are, if you're using him at center, guys are getting beat more often than they have in previous Laker years. So that volume goes up, that volume of contests go up, the beating goes up. I don't know if that's how I wanted to say that.
Finish him.
Beating, finish, no. All right. Yeah, anyways, that was Anthony Davis. Interesting thing, but he's out right now, so we'll see when they get him back. 2013 Lakers, man. That's 2013 LA. One guy comes back, another guy goes out. It just bounces like that the whole season. They remain average. I just hope, I'm not gonna put it out into the universe. Never mind. Yeah, let's go ahead and move to G League. Jackson Hayes in the G. Bruh. I'm pretty sure you saw my tweet because it made its way around Twitter. If you're wondering, he's on assignment there because he's fallen out of the rotation for the Pelicans. And the man clearly believes he doesn't belong there. His first performance was 30-something points, a lot of rebounds, but it wasn't the stat number. It was not the statistic. It was how he did it. This man was dunking everything like it was the dunk contest. He's rolling down the lane, catching passes. He's far bigger and stronger than other big men there. And so he was trying to tear down the rim on each of these. He had some and ones to go with it. He's yelling on all of them, slapping the stanchion. Clearly a clear sign that he feels he should be getting minutes in the NBA. Just a lot of people saw it and said the same thing. Like, hey, just a reminder that there's NBA guys and then there's everybody else. Because Jackson Hayes, and it's so far in the beginning of the season, remember, he was a lottery pick, I believe, or top 10 pick. And he hasn't really looked like a great NBA player. He goes to the G and you start, getting guys hitting him while he's cutting to the basket or while he's rolling, and he looked like a goddamn superstar. So I 1000% recommend you either look up Jackson Hayes G League or just go to my tweet and see it, because it's knowing what we know about him and then seeing him there was absolutely hilarious. That's stuff that I love, that I see stuff like that these days. Paying attention to both. Now, check this out though. The internet is so mind-numbingly stupid. It's not even really worth it because to bring it up here, because it was really only a couple of people. But once a tweet hits a certain number, basketball tweet, it's gonna hit Instagram eventually. I knew that was happening. So it gets posted on Instagram. I actually had it was really only like 2 or 3 people, so it's a minuscule number because most people just took it in jest. But the tweet that I wrote was, he looked like prime Shaq in the G League. Okay, I know Jackson Hayes is not Shaq. I know he don't look like Shaq. But I actually had some people tag me and say, oh, do you know what prime Shaq looked like, sir? Get out of my mentions. What is wrong with y'all, bro? A good woman or two in your life. That's all you need, bro. Just one would suffice. And you will not be reading so deeply into everything that you read on the internet. That's all I'm gonna say there. And don't tag me on no stupid shit like that, bro. I'm just gonna mute you. That's so mind-numbingly dumb. Imagine using social media so much that you see a headline in a video of Jackson Hayes dominating that says he looks like prime Shaq and you take it seriously. Fucking imagine, bro. There's better stuff in the G League to talk about than people on the internet. Isaiah Thomas is in the G League. It happened. Funny story about that. Before we did the show last week, the guy, if you follow, by the way, I recommend you follow G League TV if you're interested in seeing these type of things. Guy who runs its name is Jeff. He's a huge G League fan, so he knows everything about everything. And he posted it first because Michael Beasley said that he wants to play, and so Jeff made a post on the account tagging him saying, hey, if you want to play, like, play in the G. play here and the team might pick you up. That especially might happen right now because of all the protocols. But basically just come prove that you can play, show some what you got, do what Lance Stevenson is doing, basically. Because there's a place for you if you don't want to go overseas. There's a place for you right here. It's not that hard for you to get picked up. The G League is got guys who are interns for teams there that are playing on their squad. That's happening. So if you're a former NBA player, you can find a spot there. And so he tagged Michael Beasley, but he also tagged Isaiah Thomas because that made, I don't know how much Michael really wants to play, but Isaiah Thomas, all you have to do is be in the same Twitter sphere as him to see that he wants to play NBA basketball again. He's been on Twitter talking about it for years, and every time an opening happens, hey, they could use me, or hey, it looks like they could use me, they could use this. Like, he's been trying for years. And it just dawned on me because, again, I never paid attention to the G before this year. And so now that I've seen guys like Alfonso McKinney, Stanley Johnson, I've seen Serge Ibaka rehab there. You see guys practicing like with their squads like Klay Thompson. Now that you see all these NBA guys that are actually making use of it, and Lance Stevenson, it made me wonder, hey, why, if you're Isaiah Thomas and I guess you don't want to play overseas, because not everybody wants to go overseas, that's fair. But if you're IT and you're tweeting so much about wanting to play, why don't you play there? I guess it's a pride thing because he was on the MVP list before. And I even seen some people say that who probably agree with that stance. They were like, oh, well, that's disrespectful to him. He's showed he can play, he should already be on a team. Here's the thing about life. It doesn't work that way sometimes. Sometimes you've earned something or you've done everything right and it just doesn't go your way. And so you just gotta find another opportunity or find another way to try for another opportunity. And so if you're IT, my part with him was, all right, first of all, you're my size. You're 5'9". Matter of fact, am I taller? I might be a little bit taller than IT. I don't know. I refuse to believe I look that short. But you're regular human size. You had an injury that affected your explosiveness with your hip. You had some shots in the NBA, didn't stick around. You basically hit some shitholes on the way out, on your way down to the bottom. Like it happened. That's a thing that happened. Maybe it's not fair that whatever happened with the Celtics happened and you didn't get the Brinks truck like was supposed to have, all this stuff. But what is he, 32 now? I looked. If you want to play again, you can't just sit and wait for your phone to ring. It's kind of where and this is kind of the conversation me and Jeff were having before the show started. That's the funniest part is he made that post and I asked him, why don't you think he wants to play? And some other people chimed in and they were like, yeah, at this point, it might just be a pride thing having average like 25 points in the NBA. Maybe you just feel like I don't have to go prove anything. Well, it's been years since you played in the pros. You kind of do. Or else the team is probably not going to call you. There's other options. What, 26 teams have a G League affiliate? They have a whole farm of talent that if they need somebody, that's kind of who they call. They don't just call somebody they hadn't seen from or heard from in years. So anyways, it looks like the post from Jeff worked because I refuse to believe that it's a coincidence that he made that post and tagged IT. You know, ITC stuff. I refuse to believe he made that post and 2 days later IT is here. I absolutely think he saw that. We even talked about it on the show, but I'm not going to take credit for that. That show don't get no views. He didn't see us talking about it. But I did bring it up though, and I said I just don't understand why he wouldn't. Because I was starting to wonder before DeMarcus Cousins got signed. I was like, well, are IT and Cousins going to go play overseas and make a name for themselves or make another name for themselves? And then Cousins, of course, just got signed off rip. And then there was Thomas, though. I know he's playing like the FIBA thing, which also involved G League guys. So it's not like he feels he's above them. You're already playing with them. And now he's here. So I'm glad he's back. I can't, that's content for me. That makes it more, makes my job more entertaining. And I hope he makes it back. I don't necessarily think the route of tweeting his way back was ever going to work. I actually found it quite, it felt like it was starting to get a little bit obnoxious. So I'm glad that he's gonna, put some time down here, and with the way COVID is dropping 50, he might get pulled up and also health and safety protocol. Hey, that's how things are happening these days. Alfonso McKinney, my Alfonso McKinney podcast segment finally paid off. He got signed by the Bulls. I knew he was eventually going to get signed because the boy was handling the ball like KD down here. So I knew he was eventually going to get signed. Yeah, Bulls pulled him up out of necessity. They pulled up Stanley Johnson for him to get health and safety. So if you haven't heard that name in a while, the guy who was on the Pistons, supposed to be better than he was, yeah, he got pulled up and immediately protocoled. So great stuff there. And Mac McClung. That's the last one I'm going to talk about here. Plays for the South Bay Lakers. South Bay Lakers have a good record. I'm specifically bringing up Mac McClung to you because I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, you were probably around when I was consistently doing Sims on Twitch. And if you think back to those days, the Celtics drafted Mac McClung and he became kind of a meme because we called him Mac McClunk because in the Sim, he was constantly missing like free throws and big shots. So it became Mac McClunk. I just think it's cool for us as a community that he's probably going to be in the NBA soon now because he's eating down there. He's a sniper from the three. It's pretty cool because if the only thing you knew about him was that he dunked, it would be fair. When he was in high school, he was a sensation for that. Then he went to college, and I don't think his college career went that great when I checked on it, or when I was checking on it. Anyways, he was basically an Instagram star for dunking. But he was a good basketball player too, but that's what you saw. And in the G, it's everything. Now, he has good patience as a point guard. He's shooting it really well. He honestly rarely dunks. He gets to the rim well, but it's mostly soft finishes with either hand. So he's doing that well. Good passer, makes good decisions that way. That's why the team is winning, and it's not just him putting up stats. Because some of these players down here, it's they're putting up stats, but then you look at the score and they're down 30. South Bay has been doing good so far, and he's been a good part of that, and that's good because as a guy his size, he's not going to come to the NBA and just start dunking on everybody. I'm pretty sure Alex Caruso is bigger than him, both height wise and just like build wise too, so he can get away with the sneaky athletic look. Mac McClung, it would be like looking at JJ Redick and him coming in and jumping over people. You got to add some more to your game, and it seems like he has. So I know he played some preseason with the Lakers. I am unclear. Let me look at. Is he two-way? Mac McClung. Is he a two-way player for the Lakers? Yeah, the Lakers signed. They did sign him. Okay, cool. So he's already signed. Lakers now sit Mac McClung from Summer League. Yeah. So the terms of the deal were not disclosed. Okay. So wait, that was a training camp deal. Exhibit 10, okay. Yeah, he was on Exhibit 10, which is a training camp invite and includes an added incentive for the player to sign with the franchise's G League team. Okay, cool. And if a player is waived prior to the start of the regular season, the team can designate them as an affiliate player for the G League. I was just trying to figure out if another team besides the Lakers could pick him up, because I don't think, given that the Lakers' main problem is defense right now, I'm not sure if he could really add to that. But he can shoot. So if Kendrick Nunn is never going to come back, maybe they pick him up and have him play a little bit of that role. But they're trying to contend this year. I'm not sure if they might just want to develop Mac for a little bit. We'll see though. Good to see him doing good things after becoming a meme in our Sims. All right, last thing I'm going to talk about is 2K. I have gotten to play a little bit finally. I'm playing some Season 3. This is also where I'll talk about my trip a little bit. I got to playing Season 3. I told y'all I wasn't exactly sure about the update because they re-updated it, actually. And they added some speed back to the point guard. So you remember I was talking about the left-right they took away? They added some speed back so they're not moving at a mile an hour. Because as much as I disliked those 5'9" builds, I will agree that they probably shouldn't have slowed them down to walking speed. That is kind of insane. But it shouldn't be so fast that it looks like you're playing an arcade game. I think 2K struck a balance with that. I played the Sour Patch event this weekend with Nikias and Kobe. And left-right is still more or less dead. It takes more movement. Like, to score takes more movement, takes more off-ball movement, takes more dribbling skill. So the one person that we ran into that you could tell was clearly a left-right build, it seems like he added misdirection to his bag. The misdirection dribble, I've mentioned that. It's literally what it sounds like. It's misdirection. It's a really good move. There was another guy that was doing some great behind the back moves to split double teams, kind of. I can't remember how I think I was just trying to shade over to help, and he split us with a nice behind the back move. He split us. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it was a nice move. It just seems like I like the direction 2K tried to take it with this, because we have not ran into one team that can successfully just run back and forth for 20 minutes and win the game. That I love. So if you're mad they took damn near instant transmission out of the game, I don't know what to tell you. it seems like they found a happy medium. They found a halfway point where it's not too fast and it's not too slow. And it's made the experience more fun. It really has made it more fun. The people we play now, if we lose to them, you just lost. You didn't just make one mistake and choose wrong when they're zigzagging and get greened. So I do like that. And that's practically as far as, that was really the big mention as far as gameplay. That's really all we do. We play rec together. We play some park. I haven't got back into P&O in a while. I assume that I will in the coming year, in 2022. But yeah, so as far as 2K goes though, like I was actually with 2K, went to LA, met Brown and Stewart, Paul George. If you saw the stream, I might turn the stream into a video. I haven't decided yet. Told you I'm a horrible self promoter. Yeah, no, it was awesome. Paul George, they picked the right people for it, because talking to Paul George was the first time I ever met the guy, and talking to him was supernatural. He gave good answers. He was not playing with Breonna Stewart. He dropped 50 with his own character. So we did one game as the WNBA, because he came late. So we did one game as WNBA teams. He finished the second half of the game I was already playing against Breonna Stewart. And then we did an NBA game, and he picked the Clippers, she picked the Bucks, and then he said he about to drop a 40 piece, and he dropped 51 with Paul George, the video game character. So that was pretty cool. Talking to them was awesome. Wasn't nervous at all like I thought I would be. And I got to meet Alexis Morgan as well, 2K TV host. She is way funnier in real life than I thought. I don't watch 2K TV like that, so I don't know, maybe she is funny on there, but she's got a joke for everything. Like every response, she got a joke. She is hilarious. She is also an angel. I'm gonna leave it at that. I ran into Ronnie 2K. I didn't really run into him, but he walked in to our hotel bar, and we were with the production company, so I don't think he recognizes any of us. First of all, I didn't realize Ronnie 2K was 8.5 feet tall, so I guess I should have inferred that, seeing him stand next to other NBA players. And he walked in, and he has a chain, an actual diamond encrusted chain of the 2K logo. That's just like the most, I don't know how to describe it. It's just the funniest thing. Ronnie 2K chain. It's kind of what I would have imagined. It was strange. It was like one of those welcome to LA moments, because he wasn't supposed, not that he wasn't supposed to be there. It's just running into Ronnie 2K was not on the list. That just kind of happened. We're all just kind of walking around, and he comes through the door, moves around the space for a little bit, then walks out, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's just LA for you. It was funny, because it seemed like an actual, not to me like a celebrity walked in, but the whole aura and people he was with, it's like celebrity type thing. It was funny. That's basically the short version of the 2K trip. I'm sure there'll be more. And I almost left my PlayStation logged in at the 2K experience. That would have been a disaster, because after we were logged in as me, because we thought we were going to be playing my career. But then they came relatively on time, so we didn't. And then after I got up, like 30 minutes later, after we were sitting in the back, I realized, oh damn, my PSN is still logged in. That would have been a disaster, but it wasn't. The trip wasn't a disaster. It was awesome. And yeah, maybe there'll be more in the future. Well, there will be more podcasts in the future. They will be on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It's already Monday. It's already 12 p.m. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this out. Hit the like button if you liked it. Rate it. Sorry if there's not time markers in the comment section, but I'll do what I can. But I got to get this out soon, so can't make no promises. Appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all next week.